It's your boy El Creme, and welcome back to another episode of Meet in the Middle of Nowhere. I'm your host El Creme, and you guys know what we do here. We like to watch videos like this and have conversations about it. We're not really trying to create opinions, but at the same time, we're not shying away from opinions. What we want to do is bring everybody who is for and against to the table. Let's have a conversation about it. Bring it out. Bring it out. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. Yeah, so this is another episode of Meeting in the Middle of Nowhere. Today we're going to be talking about a great American corporation, an oil company, or a gas company, however you like to call it. And what we want to do is, just watch this and then just talk about it. Let's meet in the middle. How do we feel? Here we go.
So you're Exxon Mobil in 2007, and you've run into a big problem. Your biggest moneymaker was getting oil from Venezuela. For years, you had enjoyed unlimited access to the world's largest known oil reserves. But now Venezuela just kicked you out. That's right, Venezuela's president had just nationalized all its private oil fields, which meant that foreign oil companies like Exxon Mobil were banned. You had just lost your biggest moneymaker, and you had to find an alternative fast. Luckily, another country caught your eye, Venezuela's neighbor, a country called Guyana.
By the way, the U.S. relations with Venezuela has been sour now for a while, and it all has to do with this oil. So, just wanted to throw that in there.
Guyana is a very poor country in South America that is ripe for oil exploration. After all, it is next door neighbors with the biggest oil reserves in the world, so there's gotta be oil in Guyana, right? The problem is, even though many have tried, no one has ever been able to find oil in Guyana. But you knew you had to at least give it one more shot. And it would take you 8 terrible years after Venezuela kicked you out until you finally did the impossible. You discovered oil in Guyana.
And in the last...
Whoa! I ain't gonna hold you. That sounds like a gamble I would take myself too. As a business owner. So pretty much, there's oil in Venezuela. Venezuela says, nah, 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 nah. All this oil now is ours. We're kicking everybody out. Okay? So ExxonMobil got a deal. But they're looking at it like, man, we're not too far out. I mean, Guyana is not too far out. They borders and neighbors. How about let's head, a few miles that way and try to see if we can find oil. So they invested their money. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know if the Guyanese authorities ever thought of discovering oil in their land at that point. Because you're thinking, man, your neighbors next door, they have the most, what did it say? The number one oil reserves in the world? Man, I should think some of it came over here. Shoot. But here, so they spent 8 years investing their money trying to find oil in Guyana after getting kicked out of Venezuela.
decade, some 11 billion barrels of oil has been found, which is the most significant discovery of its kind in recent years.
Guyana's newest oil discovery by ExxonMobil at Catteback within the Stabroek Block has increased the discovered recoverable resource to approximately 10 billion oil equivalent barrels.
Ding ding ding, it was a miracle, and it turned out to be one of the biggest oil discoveries ever. You had hit the jackpot, and suddenly you were back in business. But just because you discovered oil in Guyana doesn't mean it's your Guyanese people, which means you have to somehow convince this sovereign nation to give up the one thing that would lift them out of poverty. But how on earth do you do that? Well, the great news is that as a poor country, the people are easily fooled. The politicians are very affordable to bribe. At the time, Guyana's GDP was a measly $4 billion. While ExxonMobil, you made $4 billion every 6 days. And with that kind of money, you can...
Whoa. That is crazy to think about. Can you imagine? I make $4 billion every 6 days, while this country's entire GDP is $4 billion. I have the ability to buy the entire country, from politicians the farmers, the workers, the regular citizens. I can bribe the entire country if they are corrupt. Let's see.
Can do anything. All you gotta do is use something like cash to fool the Guyanese people into welcoming you with open arms. And once you get your foot in the door, you can start systematically taking over every aspect of Guyanese society. You'll be able to silently take over their governments, to take over their free press, their legal system. And ever since the discovery of oil in Guyana, that's exactly what ExxonMobil has been doing. Today, ExxonMobil has completely and utterly colonized Guyana without a single shot ever being fired. And no one has been the wiser. One journalist wrote it best. In Guyana, it's become hard to distinguish where the oil company ends and where the government begins. This is a story about.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I was talking about. You're gonna end up, if you have one of these countries where companies are so much more richer than the entire government, you're gonna have this problem where everything is intertwined. Like that one company is pretty much, has everyone in their pocket. That's the problem about having one major, corporation in your country. And I think it's the same way with Samsung, right? Samsung and it could be Korea or Japan. It's just a or South Korea, where it's just a Samsung is a major player. Everybody wants to work for them. Because the amount of money they're bringing into the government, to the economy, they can pretty much do what they want.
About how one transnational corporation managed to take over an entire nation state in the span of just a few years. Stay dangerous and let's get into it. Here's what you have to understand about taking over a country, whether it be by force or more economic means. It's that if the people hate you, eventually they're gonna revolt. Just like what happened to you in Venezuela. We want to prevent that from repeating itself here. So the first step in colonizing a poor country like Guyana is to win the hearts and minds of the public. It's very simple. If the public loves their occupiers, they won't revolt. So from the moment that you announced your oil discovery, you told everyone that this oil was gonna make them rich, that oil mining was gonna create all these new jobs, that all the money would trickle down, and that it was gonna put Guyana's economy on the map, that it would earn Guyana $150 billion over the next 30 years. But you made sure to tell.
That's how it always starts, don't it? With the good stories. Once we find this oil, once we find this, it sounds good. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, We're gonna increase your economy by $150 billion. We're gonna give out jobs, A lot of you guys are gonna be working in these factories. It all sounds good. All sounds good. And to be fair, if I'm a major player, if I own like an Exxon Mobil or something, that's a gamble I would take as well. It's worth the 8 years, The problem is when you do find the oil, what happens? How do you treat the people? Are you making a difference, or are you just shoveling the money down the pockets of the CEOs and the CTOs?
Tell the public an important caveat. Let's face it, you poor people don't have the knowledge and equipment to dig all this oil out of the ground and refine it. So why don't you let us as ExxonMobil mine the oil for you, and we'll all share in the riches. And being that you told this to a population where 40% of the people live on less than $6 a day, what do you think they said to your little proposition? They said yes, obviously. This is everything they ever dreamed of. Quote, people were going crazy talking about oil wealth, end quotes. And it wasn't just the people. Quote, Exxon was pushing this idea and so was the government, end quotes. The oil gods have finally smiled down on Guyana and sent ExxonMobil to change everything for the better. It was the perfect narrative. And to further your influence, your first big investment in the country was to sponsor Guyana's national cricket team. In Guyana, cricket is the equivalent of football in the US, so this was a big deal. It made it look like you cared. You even paid for cricket matches to be shown on TV and made sure that every Guyanese player was wearing the ExxonMobil logo on their shirt for everyone to see. Sponsoring cricket in Guyana was like if ExxonMobil created the Super Bowl in America. Sure, it would cost you a few $1 million, but the payoff in public opinion was priceless. And your plan worked perfectly.
Hmm. That's funny. So they paid. They were able to, sway the entire citizens with cricket. They sponsored the football team, put money in their pockets. Everybody was like, "Hey, Exxon Mobil, come on in." Like, like Wayne Brady, come on down. And to be fair, they're making the average income is $6 a day. Can you blame them? But what I do want to get is the officials that got in this deal with ExxonMobil. Like, yeah, how about we mine? Let's mine this oil and then we'll share the profits. What did you guys agree? Like, so I'm in charge. ExxonMobil is completely in charge of the mining and refining of the oil. And the only thing you guys have to do is maybe provide workers and then share the profits with them. How are they being audited? Uh, because if they are your mines, you think, okay, I'll let you mine here and refine it, and we'll split the profits. But I want I want things to be completely transparent. You know, I want to know how many barrels of oil is coming out of here. I want to know how out of the barrels of oil that is coming out of here, what is our split? Is it a 50-50? Now I understand you spent a lot of money to discover this oil, and I'm taking that into account. But this is our country. And you're just one company. We have what, maybe millions of people, that we have to look out for. So what is our split? I don't know if they discussed that or had those kind of agreements, conversations when they were having an agreement. But yeah, so far so good, right? They taking care of the cricket team, and the citizens. They seem anxious. They seem excited to see what's gonna happen.
Quote, when you walked in the streets, you could hear every Guyanese saying, "Thank God for Exxon," end quotes. Now that's some effective PR. You, as an oil giant, were a hero in the eyes of the public. Their knight in shining armor that had come to save them out of poverty. Now all you needed was for the government to love you as well. Just like many poor countries, Guyana is very corrupt. In fact, it's one of the most corrupt countries in the entire region. And you know what that means, right? That means Guyana is very affordable to bribe. So you got to work turning the Guyanese government into your well-paid puppets. You wine, you dine, you schmooze your way into the highest circles of the Guyanese government. And before you knew it, your oil executives were watching cricket games with the Guyanese president.
What was the one thing I said in the beginning in order for this kind of arrangement to work? The Guyanese people would have been able to find value out of such an agreement, if the officials are not corrupt. You know, if you have a society where the people are actually trying to do the right thing, but corruption, man, when you have corruption, even if it's not everywhere, it's just if you have corruption, like for example, you could have, like, we have three cabinets of, we have the legislative party, the executive party, and the judicial party. If just one of those parties is corrupt, it could completely impact the entire thing. So that's what I'm saying. With this kind of, especially when it comes to government, once you start, you know, one government official is corrupt, two, three, four, five, man, the domino effects start to fall, you know? Because the person who's supposed to snitch, not only is he worried about snitching on one person, he's worried about snitching on four, five, six, seven people now. You know, so corruption is something that's hard to tackle. Corruption is one of those things. Everybody in there is just gonna have to be, or you just wipe everybody out. Like, we're not doing this, or everybody get the freak out.
while the Guyanese vice president regularly held press conferences talking up ExxonMobil and defending it against the country's regulators. It was the perfect setup. With the right contacts and just a little bit of money, buying favors from the government became as easy as buying vegetables from a supermarket. And thanks to your little deal with the Guyanese government, no outside supervisors were allowed on board Exxon's oil rigs and production vessels. Even your mining permits and documents were locked away from the people who were supposed to regulate your mining in the first place.
What kind of a stupid agreement is that? You don't have no outside influence coming in to regulate what's going on. And which is what I said, what kind of agreement did you guys get into? So how do you know what's going on in there? Wait.
You didn't just have the support of the government to mine oil, you also had its support to do about just whatever you wanted. In America, although you can buy politicians, there is no way you're going to be able to buy off the entire government. Heck, I don't even think BlackRock has been able to buy off the entire US government. But in a small, poor country like Guyana, Exxon was probably able to do this with just a couple $100 million. And he didn't waste a second taking full advantage of it. The media controls our reality. Think about it. The public only cares about issues when the mainstream media is blasting it in their faces 24/7.
Coronavirus, COVID-19.
And the same is doubly true for a small, uneducated country like Guyana. If pesky, independent journalists start blasting your name in the bad lights, the public will turn on you. Which meant that Guyana's free press was next on the chopping block. You needed to get rid of all those goody two-shoe journalists before they start exposing you. The public can't get mad over what they don't know, so you turn to your pals in the government again. This time you would give them money, and in exchange, they would go to all the independent Guyanese journalists working on oil and environmental stories and hire them to work for state-run news instead. They would offer these journalists a car, a raise, a fancy title, just for joining the government's official newsroom. And it worked. In a country where the average annual salary was just $6,500 a year in 2019, no one could resist the offer. One by one, journalists were bought off. And since they now all worked for the government, you had the last say on every story they published. The results? No more negative stories about you or oil in the news. Without anyone to report on your shady deals, the public had no way of knowing what you were really up to. So now you don't need all of Guyana to love you anymore. You just need to keep them in the dark. But even with the media in your pocket, there's still gonna be some stragglers that learn about your dark deeds. What if they try to sue you or use the legal system against you? Well then, I guess we're just gonna have to take over the legal system next.
Yeah, see. Yeah, that's like colonization all over again. But it's not by a country, it's by a company. They got your press, they got your politicians, you know, and your money maker is in their hands. And not only is it in their hands, you can't even regulate. From what I'm seeing from the agreement I made. So right now, you guys are just putting faith in ExxonMobil's hands. Oh, Exxon, hopefully you guys will do the right thing. To be fair, I don't think they're aware because some of these companies are very strategic. Like, they're not just buying off these journalists. Like, there's a strategy behind some of these things, you know. They probably know they've been there for probably 8 years, so they probably know which politician to target is going to get them what influence, you know. Which journalist to target. Put everybody on the state media company. So now you're looking at it like, oh, this is being run by the government. But the government is being run by ExxonMobil. You know, there always comes a time where, but the funny thing is they always feel as if both parties are benefiting, right? So in the beginning, it's like both of them are benefiting. Like the politicians are probably raking in hundreds and hundreds of millions just staying quiet and listening to ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is, hey, they didn't hit the oil jackpot. And, you know. But what about the citizens, the ordinary people, the next generation coming up? Are you going to build schools and roads and factories? Or are you even going to start one industry for these people with this oil money that you discovered in there on their turf?
Writing papers in college was remembering the correct format for my
The only way for regular people to take on a company of your size would be for them to hire really good lawyers. So what do? You take your billions of dollars in oil money and start paying off as many law firms in the country as possible. Put every single lawyer out there on a retainer. That way, no matter which law firm people go to, they'll always get the same answer. Sorry, we can't represent you because we have a conflict of interest. No lawyers, no case. No case, no fines or regulation. Simple, right? And guess what? Lawyers in Guyana make a typical salary of just $17,000 US a year, which means all you need is a few $1,000s to throw at each of them and boom, the legal system is yours. And if people go to the environmental agencies that are supposed to be completely independent and objective, well boy did you have a surprise for them. Because guess what? You're funding them too. All you had to do was throw money at the poor underfunded environmental agencies. That way everyone thought you were the good guy trying to protect the environment, while also stopping them from going after you in the process. No one's gonna bite the hand that feeds it.
Okay, they got these motherfuckers in a chokehold. Yeah, there's no other way to explain it. They didn't. Let's go, buddy. They didn't put these boys in the freaking chokehold. The lawyers? You mean nobody in that country can go against, no lawyer in that country can go against Exxon Mobil because they got them on a retainer? Conflict of interest. Even the environmentalists that are supposed to be fair, they're in their pockets too. They got you guys in a chokehold.
As ExxonMobil, your drilling operation in Guyana is one of the most dangerous in the industry, like Deepwater Horizon level dangerous. The Deepwater Horizon explosion spilled oil and gas throughout the entire Gulf of Mexico, and it cost BP $69 billion to clean it up. For comparison, Guyana's current GDP is just $8 billion. So if a spill happened, even if Guyana used all of its GDP, which is impossible by the way, it would take them more than 8 years to clean up that kind of spill. But luckily, if a spill did happen, they wouldn't have to do that, right? See, in most cases, oil companies...
Wait, this oil business is a risky business too though. What the hell? An oil spill cost $69 billion to clean up? Damn. BP got money too then. Well, I know BP got money, but I'd be mad as hell. I gotta spend $69 billion on cleanup? Cleanup? It had to be done though. But
running this sort of mining operation not only have insurance in case of an accident, but they also have to guarantee that they're going to pay for all the cleanup costs if it exceeds their insurance. And it makes sense. You're planning on making hundreds of billions of dollars off of this country's oil, so the least you can do is pay if something goes wrong, right? Well, not in the case of ExxonMobil in Guyana. See, once you had infiltrated the Guyanese government and got them to hand over all the mining rights to you, you thought that, well, if we could get them to do this, why not take it a step further? Why not make so we don't have to make any guarantees that we'll clean up after any accidents that happen? That's right, if any sort of oil accidents happen, ExxonMobil is legally off the hook. Now to be clear, you still get...
come on. Come on. Come on. That's like I rent an Airbnb out and I let you stay there and you fuck my shit up. And you're not liable to pay me back for any of the risk, the damages you got. You know, some of these things, like they come and blind some of these authorities or some of these people. I don't know who accepted this kind of an agreement. They just probably slapped his ass with $2-3 million or however, you know, $20, $30, $50,000, and the boy just quickly signed. Like, you have an oil company that's doing one of the most dangerous extraction methods in your borders, and you don't even have proper insurance in case something goes wrong. At some point, we can't just blame only these companies. Like, some of these countries got to take accountability. That's why we meet in the middle for this. Like, you know, if you're just giving it to them, if you just, come on, no, you can't just expect everybody to do the right thing. Now. You have to put some security measures in place, and this right here is goofy. Goofy as hell.
Gave them your word that you would clean up any mess you made. in the fine print saying that you have to. So now, if a spill did happen, it would be the Guyanese taxpayers who are on the hook to pay for it. And obviously, this did not sit well with a lot of people. With this move, you have finally revealed your true colors. That you didn't really care about the people or the country. It showed that you were just in it for the money all along. And so suddenly, public opinion about ExxonMobil started to change. And the people took you and the Guyanese government to court, accusing you of working with the government to break the rules. But luckily, the Guyanese government refused to stop supporting you. This was the first time in history that an oil company and a government environmental agency was on the same side of a lawsuit. And even
Wait. So some people done figured out what is going on here and sued ExxonMobil. That they got these people in a shady deal, like, and they don't care about, these people. They just here for the money. If something happens in this oil rig, they expect Guyana to, to pay for it. It's not fair. Not only, but the Guyanese government comes out and backs ExxonMobil. What? So we're suing these people for putting you in an unfair deal and you're backing them.
when Guyana's high court ruled against you, the government just wouldn't accept it. Instead, they lodged an appeal on your behalf. Yes, the government was fighting for ExxonMobil. And with that kind of power, now all you had to do was sit back and let the money flow in. Congratulations, with the government, lawyers, and even the environmental agencies on your side, you had finally completed your takeover. Now you can sit back and make your billions, while making sure that none of it actually goes back to the Guyanese people. But look, you say, Guyana's GDP has been going to the moon since we started mining, you say. The Guyanese people should be thankful for you. But how much of that money has actually gone back into the country? Turns out not so much. Guyana's government was so desperate to keep you and your money in the country, the deal they signed allows you to deduct up to 75% of your revenue as expenses, before the rest is split between you and the government. It doesn't matter if your profit margin really is 25% or not. That was the deal the government signed. And even if they wanted to find out what your real profit margin was, they don't have the money or manpower to audit you. So you can just keep raking in billions while Guyana stays as poor and underdeveloped as ever. And sure, more and more people are starting to realize how you con them out of their oil, but with more and more oil being discovered every year, and more oil wells being dug by ExxonMobil, given how deeply rooted ExxonMobil is with the government and the economy, it may just be too late.
There goes some more goofy stuff. So you didn't agree with these people that 75% of the profits they make was going to be used to cover expenses before you even get your cut. Yeah, because I was watching this video, I was saying it, because the way it was going, they was wrapping these people up in like an anaconda. You know when an anaconda catches its prey and, squeezes it? Just wrap these people around. And now the only way you can break free is deposing the corrupt government that is in ExxonMobil's pocket. ExxonMobil keeps finding more oil. They're going to keep digging, keep making more money. The government is in their pockets. They're going to keep getting money from ExxonMobil. The lawyers are in their pockets. So they're not facing any judiciary, any type of, they don't see any type of consequences coming from the Guyanese courts. The environmentalists are in their pockets. So even if something bad happens or something drastic happens, like a major oil spill, ExxonMobil will be let off the hook too. Meanwhile, 75% of the profits, you don't even know how much money they're making because you can't even audit them on your turf. I am extracting your resources, and you don't know how much of it how much money I'm making off of it. All you get to see is the little eye. I give your politicians to hush up, or your lawyers to turn a blind eye, or your court systems to keep fighting for me. Makes no sense. ExxonMobil is probably making more money. What am I saying? It already said it. ExxonMobil's making $4 billion a day, while the Guyanese government was at $4 billion. Now the Guyanese government is probably at $8 billion. Let's see if we can check the net worth. What's the GDP of Guyana? Yeah, $8 billion in 2021. Sheesh. Well, ExxonMobil has a net worth of $439 billion as of August. Yo, nowhere close. And how much of this is coming from Guyana? Yo, yeah. This is another example of how the rich get rich and the poor stay poor. What do you guys think, man? Let me know. Let's meet in the middle. I know Guyana can't completely be exonerated. They played this stupid as well. They have to take some of the blame for completely letting a foreign company come in your country and put all of you guys in a fucking chokehold. So you guys have to take some accountability. But ExxonMobil is doing their best to take advantage of this situation. That's just what it is. You can say you can't blame them, but hey, yeah, they're gonna have to meet in the middle. But they're meeting in the middle of nowhere. That was another podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back with another one.